Before we stand for opening hymn, if you have a phone with you, if you would put it on airplane mode, it helps with the people who are on Zoom. And our first hymn is out of the Blue Book, and it's Sing Joyfully, number 153, Sweet, Sweet Spirit. Now it's time for announcements, and we will start with Zoom. Well, all is quiet on the Zoom front. Let's switch to here. Is there anybody here who has an announcement?
Am I on? Yeah, I'm on. This is Anita Kamek, and just my regular reminder that the meeting for business is next Sunday, 7 p.m. on Zoom. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Lynn Adams, and several of you have asked about the lanyards that hook on these, and I've ordered some new ones. They were supposed to be in yesterday, but I got a message that they were coming today. So next week, if you don't have the right kind to clip onto your name tag, it will be in next week. Also, there's a sign up. If there's anybody that doesn't have a name tag, put your name out there, and I will have it for you next week.
Friends, if you join me in prayer, please. Lord, we thank you for life itself and for the joy we experience as we live it, for the sun that rises each morning to power the earth and for the rain that gives plants and animals and us the water that we drink. We thank you for the senses that allow us to see, hear, touch, taste, and smell the wonders of creation. Thank you for the beauty that is there to witness if we take the time to look, and the peace that can be ours if we seek it. Lord, help us to show our thanks by being good stewards of our world, doing everything we can to protect our home and the people who share it. Though ours is just one nation under God, we rightly celebrated its founding this past week and the strides it has made and the freedoms it promises. But let us commit ourselves also to continuing the betterment of who we are, how we are governed, and how we treat each other and those around the world. Most of all, Lord, help us to recognize your presence in each person we meet and each person whose needs we learn of. Help us to properly honor both the humanity and that of God in those we already love and those we are only coming to know. Help us to show kindness and respect and generosity and love, no matter the circumstances of our encounters. Amen.
Deuteronomy 15:10 says, "Give generously to those in need, and do so without a grudging heart. Then because of this, the Lord your God will bless you in all your work and in everything you put your hand to." For monetary donations, there are plates at the back of the church, or you can go to the website and find other ways that you can give. But for the food donations, Michael, would you like to come forward? I just hope you don't get as heavy a load as you did last week. Pray for his muscles. Well, Michael, his blessing. I don't know if you heard him or not, but Michael said, "Why does it have to be canned food?" Phil couldn't be here today, but a part of Phil is going to be here. I try to get the things that I say to go along with the sermon, and when Mike told me what it was, I dug out this book that is from the Front Porch Tales of Phil, and I read this. It says in June of 1999. So it's been a while since I've had this book out, but it does, what he says does go along with the sermon. And the title of it, I love this, is Streams in the Desert. Went over to my folks' house one spring day to celebrate my nephew's first birthday. Took a walk and saw people out working in their yards, folks I hadn't seen for years. I saw Mr. Amos Welty down on the corner raking up the winter deadfall from his yard, getting the place ready for 6 months of flowers, starting with the crocuses and ending with the mums. His crocuses were up. I stopped to look at them. He came over to talk, which made me nervous, since we had parted enemies 20 years before. Mr. Welty had been a sour man, A mean man, truth be told. Once he even threw a shovel at me for walking on his grass. I upped the ante the next day by nailing him with a water balloon. He was pulling weeds, stood up to stretch, and I caught him amidships. Pow! He called the town officer, Charlie Morlock, who put out an APB on me. Officer Morlock found me in my front yard. He stopped his cruiser, climbed out, and walked toward me with his hand on his gun. He drew near, reached out, and laid his heavy hand on my shoulder. He looked me in the eye and he said, "Good shot." He didn't like Mr. Welty either. So I hadn't talked with Mr. Welty since that time, but it was on my mind when he walked toward me that spring day. He extended his hand and we shook, which disarmed me. And then we talked about crocuses and other harbingers of spring. 20 years ago, he was corroded with anger. Now, he was gentleness personified. He had changed. Amos Welty had metamorphosed. I talked with my dad about it. He said Mr. Welty had been nice ever since his mother died. She was all he had, and then she died, and he was alone. It occurred to him that instead of throwing shovels at children, he should invite them to the porch for bubble gum and cookies. Now, his yard has bare spots where grass once grew, but it seems a far lovelier place. Read a book that said one's personality and character are pretty much well formed by the age of 5. By then, folks can tell whether someone will be sipping Ripple in an alleyway or inventing a cure for cancer. At least that's what the author said. Get it right in 5 years or start saving for bail money. I pitched the book. First, because I didn't need the pressure. I have 2 children and a spastic colon, so I already don't sleep nights. But I also pitched it because I know too many Mr. Weltys. Folks who've changed horses midway across life's stream, got tired of the nag of hate that they were riding, and traded up for charity and grace. The prophet Isaiah talks about God making streams in the desert, talks about how God puts things where they've never been before, like love where hate once reigned. Streams in the desert, Isaiah calls it. I'm here to tell you these streams are real. For early one spring, when the crocuses bloomed, I waded into one.
What'd you say? It's a whole lot better than one. Good.
Several years ago, Rita and I went on a mission trip to Ghana in Africa. We had some really interesting and growing experiences while we were there. But one of the things that I'm reminded of this morning is that we went to a church service and they had the offering, as we did with the baskets being passed a while ago. And we thought, well, we need to be pretty generous here. And so we were. And about 5 minutes later, they had another offering. And at the end of the service, they had another offering. They had offerings for the congregation, offerings to buy new instruments for the church, offerings for just a little bit of everything. And I am hereby proposing that at the end of today's service, we have a special offering to buy wagons to haul the food. Can we vote on that at the next monthly meeting? Well, I wonder how many of you remember the old days when there was no caller ID? Anybody remember that? The phone rings and you're wondering, who? Let's see now, who could that be? Could that be mom, or could that be my brother, or could that be somebody trying to sell me something, or whatever? And then you go ahead and pick up the phone, and it's a voice that you don't recognize. Remember the feeling? Uh-oh, who is this? And you say, what? Who's speaking? Who am I speaking to? Who's calling? You know, when we don't know quite who we're speaking to, that's kind of an unnerving experience. Well, this past week, I got a text, and I didn't recognize the phone number. And the phone number said, would you like to speak on Sunday at Fairfield? And I normally would have said, sure, no problem. But you guys know Phil Gulley, right? And he's always trying to pull something. And yes, I have his phone number in my phone, but he's not above getting somebody else's phone number and sending me a message. So I wasn't quite sure who was inviting me to speak today. But then I texted back and I said, I'm sorry, I don't have this number in my phone. Could you tell me who's asking? And it was Ann Tarvin, and I was glad to say yes. So thank you, Ann, for that invitation. You know, sometimes, though, I get a call, a voice, somebody speaking to me, who seems to be able to tell me or purports to tell me what other people are thinking. And you know, I almost never question what that voice in my head is talking about, how accurate they might be, whether they're actually talking facts or if they're just making assumptions. They try to tell me what other people are thinking, and I don't think to ask, now wait a minute, who's speaking? Who is this? Are they sharing facts, or are they, as I said, just making assumptions? And I never really weigh the wisdom of obeying that voice before acting on it. But lately I've been noticing how often that voice in my head is wrong. Now, lest you think that I'm schizophrenic or something, oh, he's hearing voices? What? Let me give you an example of that voice in my head. I've had a long day at work and so forth and engaged and what have you, but instead of coming home just to relax, I'm eager to do something. I want to go somewhere, but I can't really think of any place to go. I want to see something interesting, but there's nothing on television worth watching. So, oh yeah, I just made Mike's famous German chocolate upside down cake the day before. So we've got some of that in the house. And we have some neighbors that we haven't gotten to know really, really well. It sure would be fun to have some neighbors over, and there's even some ice cream in the freezer. So I say to Rita, why don't we ask some of the neighbors to come over for cake and ice cream? And I'm all puffed up thinking about how much fun that'll be. We'll get to know people. It'll be a really nice evening, and I'm sure they'll compliment my cake whether they like it or not. And that's important. So I'm excited, and hey, why don't we have the neighbors come over and we'll have cake and ice cream? And Rita doesn't look up from the book on her iPad and says, I don't think so tonight. Boy, did she poke a hole in my balloon. And that voice started in. Didn't she see how much you wanted to do that? Why does she throw cold water on every idea you come up with? Don't you do everything that she ever suggests? And with everything that voice said, my reptilian brain responded, I'm hurt. I'm deflated. I'm humiliated. And yeah, I'm mad. And I hold on to that anger for the rest of the evening. And I hold on to that anger even though she later explained, well, at least one of those neighbors isn't even at home tonight. I saw their car leave earlier. And another one of those neighbors has cancer, and he almost has an impossible time even getting out of the house. So there are all these reasons why it wouldn't have made sense anyway, but that voice in my head one more time says, well, of course, she's always right, and you're always wrong. Do you see the ridiculous things that guy in my head says? Do you see how little sense it makes? Am I the only one with that voice in my head? Thank you. Well, I'll see you next time. Treg says yes. All right. When you're an old man like me, you hear these things. So, well, that guy in my head had just been triggered. He's a snowflake who gets upset at the slightest thing. His delicate personality can't take even the smallest disappointment or contradictory opinion of somebody else. Conservatives like to make fun of easily triggered snowflakes, but psychologists say triggering is a real thing. Now, I'm not a psychologist, but I do a little reading and the like, and some of the things that I took a look at say that triggering is a mental health term for sights, sounds, tastes, smells, or situations that bring memories of a traumatic event to the surface for a victim. A soldier might be triggered by a firecracker. A woman who's been raped might be triggered by the scent of cologne that was worn by her attacker. But what about those of us who can't point to a particular traumatic event and yet feel hurt or angry when someone says or does something that was never intended to hurt us? A recent piece in Psychology Today summarizes a study of how, when, and why people take offense. There's really almost no thinking involved. It's totally an emotional response that comes out. The response is often due to a perceived insult or slight, not a real one. Whether the slight or insult is real or not, a whole host of emotions is triggered. And those emotions are strong because these perceived slights, perceived offenses, are an attack on us as a person, who we are. If we have a perceived slight, it's an insult to who I am. You're saying I'm less than. And therefore, I either feel bad because you're probably right. I've always been told I'm less than, and there you are reinforcing it. Or you are not right, and it's not fair to say that kind of thing to me. And so the emotions are extremely wrong. Extremely strong. Our sense of self is formed primarily by what others say about us or see in us or how they act toward us. We see ourselves primarily as others see us. And so, especially if we've been conditioned to think of ourselves as inferior, a reminder of our inferiority is a punch in the stomach. If another person seems to see us as less than, then an attack, that is an attack on who we are. It's an attack on ourself, an attack on our self-worth, and so it's no wonder that there's a powerful response. But can it be avoided? I chose this topic for today after I read, I don't even remember where, one individual said it was sort of his motto, and his motto was, wherever possible, choose not to take offense. There are times, of course, when taking offense is fully justified. But when that voice in our heads shouts, he's being mean, it's not fair. Who does she think she is? Can we delay or let go of our natural instinct to be hurt or fight back? I love this quote from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5, which says, love hardly even notices when others do it wrong. Boy, I wish I could live up to that. Love hardly even notices when others do it wrong. Even if that other person did intend me harm, a sharp response isn't going to help. So here are some tips that the psychologists offer on how to deal with perceived slights. First of all, don't assume bad intentions. Maybe even ask for clarity. Is this what you're saying? What makes you say that? It really bothered me when this happened. Why did you say that? Ask yourself, why am I so upset? Might I be overreacting? Did I assume the worst when that wasn't what was meant? Even if it was intentional, is this something worth being upset over? Give the other person a pass. Most people don't intend to make others feel bad. And most people don't clearly communicate their motives, so don't assume bad intent. Consider understandable reasons why the other person might have said or done what he did. Are they under stress? Worried? Angry at somebody else and perhaps taking out on you? And try to shift the emotional response to a logical one. But how do you do that? Anybody here ever play with magnets when you were a kid? Take two magnets, if the poles are aligned properly, get them even slightly close to each other. They jump together, right? Quickly come together, stick together. It's hard to pull them apart. Flip them around the other way. Poles are the same. I'm not making a point about the poles, but put them in the right position. Try to push them together. They will not go together. They push each other apart. Here's my analogy. If you want to be pulled toward other people and for them to be pulled toward you, reverse the polarity, if you will. When that thing comes in your mind, when that voice says, look what he did to you, why is he cutting you down? Why did she, whatever? Remember the magnets. As that thought starts to come to mind, push it away as fast as you can. Because once those emotions get triggered, it's almost impossible to pull it apart, do away with it, back off, be calm, be kind. When those thoughts come into your head, take that magnet and repel those emotions and that judgment. Push them away before they stick. Here's another passage from Scripture that I like and that is fits with my message for today. It's from Philippians chapter 8. And verse 11 says this: Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on these things. Instead of that one little instance, that one little disappointment, push that thing away and focus on all of the good. The one little disappointment versus soon to be 54 years of marriage and thousands of instances of kindness and love and generosity and so forth. Think about that, Mike. And I encourage you to do the same. Thank you.
It was great to hear how the magnets work with other people, and I keep getting in mind how important it is to let it work with your own self as well. And we're easy to be self-critical and to talk down to ourselves and things like that. But it's important to repel with the magnet those thoughts as well and remind ourselves just how good our heart is and that it's okay to be patient with ourselves, to make mistakes, and to continue to be kind with ourselves. I think a lot of times, we're to treat others how we want to be treated, and the way that we mistreat people is because we're not treating ourselves or we're not thinking highly enough of who we are.
I really thought about the very first paragraph of the message today, of thinking of something wonderful and hearing the word no. But I was thinking in terms of the number of times I've said no to somebody suggesting something. And I work really hard. That was like an epiphany that happened to me later in life, that if you answer every question and every idea with no, it doesn't allow for learning the depth of the other person's wishes and wants. And so when I meet people sometimes, that their first reaction to everything is no. And I tried really hard to come back to them with a different angle or a different idea of the same thought, so that they can finally say yes, because they have things in their mind that are the reason that they're saying no to you.
Our closing hymn today is found in the Green Hymn Book, Worship and Song, and it's number 1.
Song
God bless you all. Thank you for being here today. Remember to push away those negative thoughts and draw near to you those things positive, beautiful, filled with grace and peace. Draw near to you those around you. Reach out to help and show them love. And when you get the survey that asks about today's speaker, remember that I got you out early. Turn and greet friends.
Oh, that is great.